Welcome back. Thank you once again for hanging out with us. This is the one and only IT in the D Show. I'm your host, Bob Waltonspiel, hanging out with co-host, producer extraordinaire, Randy Walker. Guest this week, David Juan. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. First time, I think, in our history of our show that we are talking all things MarTech. We're talking UX. We're talking how being good at what you do gets you to own a company. And we're going to talk about scrumdetroit.com, little meetup group that we want to do some co-opting with. But hey, you can find us online, itinthed.com. Do us a favor, give us a like on the socials, subscribe to us everywhere fine podcasts are sold. We're going to figure out the rest of the year on meetup.com/itinthd. We're going to be at the Eastern Palace Club. We're moving them up a week because of Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we're going to end the year there. Oh, it's still going to be third Thursday?
Still third Thursday, the 16th.
There it is. 16th. So yeah, check us out, meetup.com/itinthd. Fantastic venue, great people, really good barbecue. The pastrami was absolutely insane. Good drinks, and they like having us there. So that's always it's funny with these venues in Detroit. So we get the pushback, and we don't want 50 nerds there just drinking and not causing fights and causing a ruckus. Right. We want to charge you extra. We're like, we don't, it's a cool group. So no, we're happy to finish the year out at a place that appreciates us. So Dave, how you doing? How they treating you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. First time, I will say, ever on a podcast, and I'm excited to do this.
So this is easy. Like I said, this is like hanging out at the coffee shop. It's no different.
Yeah.
We're getting into something that I'm like completely novice idiot, which is common, but you see, you're the expert at this. So pardon the dumb questions and pardon the idiocracy, but MarTech is a phrase that's thrown around a lot. And some people just nod and think that they know what they're talking about. And other people actually know what they're doing. I know you know what you're doing, but just, I guess, for anyone like, on the data center side or a software nerd that doesn't really know, what is in your terms MarTech?
So to me, it means a couple things. But there's what the industry would coin MarTech. And so like Gartner says, MarTech is, when you, basically it's any set of, marketing capabilities that are integrated, that enable, targeting and acquiring and retaining clients. And so that's like a real blanket statement of what it is. But MarTech has really only been around as like an actual like classification of technology since like 2010, 2011. And at that point, when they first kind of classify what is MarTech, it was like maybe there were 250 players in the space. And now there's like over 11,000 companies that all are in the MarTech space. And so it's a lot of different types of technologies and platforms that you would use in order to be able to, understand who your client is, understand how your client's engaging you, and then understand how you can target specific sets of clients through many different channels, whether that's like on your website, whether that's through email, whether that's through SMS or text, or whether that's through push notifications on the mobile app or direct mail. All of that involves a ton of data, a ton of automation, and a ton of MarTech, essentially like a MarTech stack at most companies that make that happen.
So I feel like the stuff's been around for as long as I've been around in this business. What changed to make it MarTech? Is this just like some marketing person, said, we need to call toilet paper bathroom tissue, and then it's really in essence the same shit, or I guess
no pun intended. Yeah, a little bit. So a good example is there's a whole classification within MarTech called DXP, and that stands for Digital Experience Platform. And a lot of kind of the old school CMSs, content management systems, which are things I'm sure you've heard of before, Absolutely. Like WordPress. Everyone knows what WordPress is, sure. Right? You use WordPress, to go build a website, and you make it so that anyone can help manage the content on that website. That's a thing that's been around for a very long time. CMSs have been around a long time. A DXP, what that is it basically takes the capability of what a CMS does, but then it layers on a few other things. It layers on the ability to have some built-in analytics to understand, the behavior of people when they're visiting your sites. and then it adds in the ability to be able to target very specific visitors to get personalized experiences. And then to integrate in with the rest of your MarTech stack to be able to carry those personalized experiences over from web into email and the next channel and the next channel. So when you start to break into like multi-channel, strategies and personalization and engagement, that's when it starts to go. It's no longer CMS. That's now DXP, and that's when it really kind of crosses over into the MarTech space.
So I got to call out. I'm going to call someone out because I'm angry at them right now. But I found out a buddy of mine called me up and he goes, "Why are you creeping on my website?" And I go, "How the hell do you know I'm creeping on your website?" He goes, "Oh, trust me, I know." And we've been house shopping lately. I know it's a great market for it. But I'm literally getting phone calls every time I click on a house from realtor.com, and I hate their guts for it. And I'm like, I didn't click a form. I didn't fill anything out. And he goes, "Yeah, we saw you clicking around." And I'm like, "You're calling me on my cell phone?" So like, how is this an ethics thing? Or like, I guess what do each company write their own rules on how they engage with prospective clients?
Well, I mean, every company can do whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
But then there's ultimately, regulators and essentially, whether if you're in, Europe, there's a set of standards. If you're in the U.S., there's actually a set of standards. The California Privacy Act that essentially. In the U.S., you actually have a lot of control because of the way legislation was passed in California. And if you're if you're in the U.S., you're doing business in California, you can't really selectively target how you're, handling someone in California versus the next state over, and you don't want to really risk that. And so there's a set of laws that say. You as the consumer have complete control of your data, and you need to give explicit permission in being able to use that data to market to you. And so that's why you'll notice over the last few years, every website you visit, you're getting a pop-up that asks you to consent or not consent. You have the right to be able to contact a company and say, "I need to see every bit of data you have on me." You have the right to contact a company and say, I need you to delete all of my data. So maybe not every company is playing by the rules that they're supposed to, but there are regulators out there constantly looking for people not following the rules. And more than that, there are people looking to bring class action lawsuits against companies, and the bigger the better. I would not doubt that a company like realtor.com is probably doing the best they can to try and ethically handle all of your data, but there certainly is like, hey, when they play perfectly by the rules, there can be a certain degree of personalization that hits like this creepy factor. And I'd say the goal is someone in MarTech, someone in the engineering side of the digital marketing space. There's always a goal we have of like giving you information that's so relevant that you wouldn't consider it to be marketing, but you just consider it to be good information, but not crossing a line to where you're suddenly like, okay, that's creepy. That's weird. Why did you know that? Even though like there are situations where legally we might know that and we might want to, put that in front of you, but we'll always have to stop and consider like, what's that experience going to be like for the user?
Sure. I feel like I'm the biggest sucker for the predictive analytics model on social media, and I'll explain why. I was just I texted Randy last week that I bought a pair of perfect jeans. I probably saw $1 million worth of their ads, and now I'm looking at everything I've wore all summer. We were joking because all the guys at this barbecue we went to were all wearing Huck shorts, we're all wearing Hey Dude shoes, and like half of us were wearing Fresh Clean tees. And I just bought a pair of perfect jeans, and I'm like, as much as I bitch about marketing or data for that matter, I go, they must know me all too well because like I'm a complete sucker. But I love all the products. That's the weird thing. But it's like I think Facebook wrote the Bible on it. But I think that this whole predictive analytics thing, like, oh, this guy's a sucker for Flash Gordon t-shirts. We're gonna put it like every dollar of marketing to him. I mean, is that in essence what's going on?
I mean, yeah, of course, right? Like you have, and cookies are with changes that Apple has made and Chrome has made and Google has made, right? Like to the way that you can use cookies and how they're stored. It's moving more and more away from using cookies to do that kind of tracking. But absolutely, it is no coincidence when you are browsing a site and then you suddenly get a commercial, on your Comcast TV that kind of matches the thing that you were just looking at not that long ago on Facebook. And and then the search results when you search on Google tend to start to match the pattern. Like this is all intended, right? This is all this is how a $1 billion industry was created around search.
I hate all of it, but I'm a complete sucker for it. So I want to get into UX, and UX never, not that it never made sense to me. I never like, there was no, like, it's like architecture. There's an art form and there's, four walls and there's a floor, with UX with me, which is, obviously the user experience when you're going to a website. If you don't know so many acronyms in this world, I swear to God. But like UX, it never, are you like, when, let's say you're a UX designer, are you going by, hey, here's the 800-pound gorilla in my industry, I'm going to model what they're doing? Are you doing trial and error going, hey, our website, we're not getting the traction, or our social media is not getting, and we're just doing trial and error until something pops? Like, what is the process of the, I guess, pass fail when are you bringing in 20 people into a focus group and asking them what sucks? Like, walk me through like the life of being in UX.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it depends on how big of a company you're at and how big of a new feature, right, you're releasing. So if of course, yeah, if you're a big company and you're investing a lot in developing and building out, say an entirely new experience, and you already have a lot baked into your brand, and you don't really want to take a lot of big risk, you might do a ton of research. Where you're going to have focus groups and they're going to come in and you're going to, prototype things with them and ask for feedback and try and, figure out what the brand perception is going to be and, all of these things. But I think, most of the time, at least in the MarTech space, our test is going to be with a live audience. And we're going to release, we'll release a change on a particular, say, like a form that you're filling out. So say you're on, one of those websites you were just talking about, you clicked on the ad for the new jeans, and, you cost that company money when you clicked on that ad. They paid some real dollar amount, and depending on the industry, like if you're in the, say, mortgage or real estate industry, you might have actually cost that company like $20, $30, $40, $50 just for clicking that ad. And so it's kind of game on at that point of, now you have that person, and whether or not you're able to get them to go from the start of that lead form to the end of it is, going to determine whether or not that investment you just made of getting that person on the page is worth it, right? So you're gonna test that, and you're going to, if you make a change to that page, you probably aren't going to make it for many users. You're going to do a little bit of a split. You're going to take your champion, the page that is already working, and you're going to test it against a page that you've hypothesized is going to perform better.
Right.
And you're going to see whether or not it actually does perform better using an A/B test before you start to dial more and more traffic over to that new.
See, is it? I'm thinking like the users that would go to the page, right? And let's say, like, I'm just going through like my family. You have a 16-year-old daughter who's raised obviously with the phone in her hand. You have my wife who's not tech savvy at all. She's in the medical field. I'm tech savvy. Then you have like my dad that's not tech savvy, and you have all these people hitting Levi's.com. Right. And is it just, are they just trying to, when they're building it, are they just trying to hit the max good? Or, because obviously you have so many different people, then you have people from different cultures, different languages. Obviously there's translation, but what all goes into that?
Well, yeah, I'd imagine a company as big as Levi's or any large company that has a really good traffic base. When you start to get to like high volumes of traffic, and you say you've optimized a page for conversion for just the general population, the way that you continue to whittle away to like get more and more and more conversion is by then starting to segment your traffic and exactly what you were saying of like, you can tell based off of the patterns and behaviors and where else this person has visited and what other first and third party information you can get. You can start to determine like, hey, this person, if I show them this version of this page, or if I ask the question in these orders or in this order, or if I show them these images instead of these ones, they may convert higher. And so then it gets into not really just being an A or B, but it's like an A for Bob, B for Randy, C for this other group. And, that's really when you get into MarTech, that's when you get into DXP. And that's like so much more than just a simple CMS that's made to build a content or build a web page and manage the content. But now you're getting into like some pretty advanced technology that's using a lot of AI and machine learning and things to be able to continually learn and train out these models that will determine which experience is going to be optimized for what segment of your
so I'll give some local love. Like we're on jeans, and I know Detroit Denim, so I went to DetroitDenim.com, and I'm just fishing through it right now, and it's obscenely simple. Like my dad could buy jeans on this site. Like they did a really fantastic job of just keeping things absolutely simple. So like, granted they only have, a handful of SKUs. So I can see that, where the UX comes in, where, you figured it out, you nailed it. But like on a like, I'm not talking Amazon because it's the behemoth, but like, I'm trying to think something in between that's got a lot of SKUs. Let's say you're, Walgreens or something. Again, what is, when you talk about, so like A/B testing, we talked about this prior to the show, and I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Not that it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, are you building like different experiences and you're kind of pushing them out in the ether and seeing what works, converts, gets the most feedback? Like, is that what how many do you basically build? Is it more than just two?
Well, so A/B testing, what it also can be, is a way for you to figure out if you even should build something. So a lot of A/B testing tools, I'll give you an example, like, Adobe Target or Oracle has one called Maximizer, or there's Optimizely. These are all A/B testing tools, and essentially what they do is allow you to kind of mock changes to your site for end users. And so essentially what I could do is like, I could use one of these A/B testing tools, and if you gave me just a little bit of access that I would need, I could go to your site's what, itandthed.com. Yep. I could go to like itandthed.com, and all I would need you to do is like insert one snippet of JavaScript into the head of the page. And then I could use one of these A/B testing tools to essentially change anything that you can change with HTML and CSS and even some JavaScript. I could change anything I want about that page. And then when I run a test, a visitor hits your website. And essentially what these testing tools do is, because you have that snippet of JavaScript in the head, they jump in and say, hey, I'm going to stop the page load. I'm going to rewrite the DOM of the page, and I'm actually going to change what the page looks like only for these users. And, and that's why, like, if you ever go to a website when they have a maybe not so great A/B test running, and you see a flash when the page first loads, that flash is a telltale sign that, oh, there's an A/B test running on this page. But the whole point of that is essentially to mock up like features that you could put on that page and like how it would look. And if that test wins, you don't want to leave it that way forever, because you're kind of holding it up with almost like duct tape and bubble gum at that point. But you do that because then that tells you, oh, by us making this change, we can lift conversion by like 0.5% or 2% or 1% on this page. And that on high traffic sites can lead to like a lot of money in terms of conversion. And so, then at that point, you would go to your developers and you would say, hey, we just ran this test, this one, I need you to make the page look like this for, forever, or for this subset of traffic. And then you actually would have engineers go spend hours to build what you just kind of mocked up in an A/B testing.
So I'm going to ask you the dumbest question I think I've ever asked on the show's history. Like,
No worries.
how do you know when you're done? Is this just a constant battle of because the way I'm thinking about this is, okay, your sales are $10, $20. They finally hit $100, and you're still tweaking because you want to make it 110, but then it goes down, and you're like, uh-oh, what was that? I'm just like, again, I'm thinking of stupid analogies in my head. I think you're picking up what I'm putting down, but like, how do you know when it's good? I guess it's a better way to frame it.
I don't think, and I'm not just saying this as someone who builds a career around you're never done with this stuff, but maybe I also am saying it as someone who has that career. But I don't think you ever can be done, because even once you have your champion, so let's say you've optimized and optimized and optimized for years and years and years, and you have a champion, you're still going to try and test things against it, because you're still going to have new, use cases that are going to come in for a new version of this page supporting this particular thing, or this other line of business now has heard that, this other area saw great success with this particular thing. They want to see if it works for their customers. Some companies will have their direct to consumer versus their B2B, and the way that you optimize that page for B2B is different than direct to consumer. And so I think you're always testing, because you're always trying to make it better. You're always trying to improve, and get, like I said, if you're highly successful and you're getting tons of traffic, then even squeezing out a fraction of a percent in conversion is going to continue to make a big difference for your business. So you're always going to be looking for the extra inches.
Yeah. I thought the same thing. I'm like, but the thing was more like, when it's good. And because I guess it just, the sales tell you at the end of the day, right? Or the engagement or the forms or the leads or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I would say when your conversion starts to taper off and that's how you know, because I think if you're setting, but there of course are industry baselines that you could look at, but you might be setting baselines, right? You might be outperforming, and so I think when you start to see over several months things start to taper off, and you're not seeing the exponential growth, or your curves flattened out, then okay, I think I have my champion. And then of course, again, you're still going to test against.
Sure. Now, this is one thing that, you don't hear much about these days. And we had a small business website designer on, so I haven't talked about that in a while either. I wanted to see what was new a couple of weeks ago, but SEO in the enterprise. You hear all these things now with AI, kind of, you can go to your big, Pepsi can go to Coke.com and strip all the SEO words that they pulled out, and they can make it their own. What's changed in terms of enterprise SEO compared to, when's the last time I had a refresher? 5 years ago? I know it changes daily, but it seems to me that that's another never-ending battle.
Well, the biggest, I know people give Google some flack for being such a massive company, but I think what they do with SEO is in the best interest of the user, the person that's searching stuff on Google. The recent round of changes that they made last year, and some of them went into effect last year, some of them are still going into effect. Optimize or prioritized what they call the Google page experience, and that's made up of these 5 objective measures that are all based off of your experience as the user when you're hitting a web page. And so Google's looking at that, and they're constantly going out there on a regular basis and looking at what the user's experience will be. And for instance, there's one measurement they have called cumulative layout shift. And what that means is, have you ever clicked on an article on your phone and you start reading it, and then a second into reading it, it jumps up because another image loaded on the page and you suddenly lost your place of what you were just reading? Have you ever had that happen?
Every day.
Yeah. That's called cumulative layout shift. And that kind of thing has always existed, but people will only prioritize it if either people won't visit their article or page because of it, which people just tend to plow through it.
I always thought
But
it
if
was
Google,
to trick you into clicking the sponsored link in there because it always
no, it's just poor tech. Yeah. It's just poor technology. But yes, it does do that sometimes, right? Because suddenly now the image loaded right up and, but it's just because they didn't, there's ways to build a page so that you have these placeholders and spacing for those images. And you want those images to load slower than the content because you as the reader, you want to read the content right away. And so sometimes the developer won't put that placeholder in there, and instead, you now get a page that's jumping around. So Google actually measures that. They call it cumulative layout shift, and if you perform poorly on that, then they actually bump you down in ranking.
Wow.
And so now there's an incentive for people, for developers, for companies to say like, hey, we got to actually worry about this. So time to interactive in terms of like the time when you land on a page, how long until you actually can begin to interact with the content. First input delay. So when you click a button on the, page, like, how long does it take for, the action you expect it to happen? Like Google's looking at all these things and scraping pages constantly and measuring it. And if you perform poorly in those measures, then they actually are now starting to downgrade you in SEO. And so that's put a big emphasis now on the page experience for people. And so I'd say that's one of the biggest changes in the last year or two that's happened when it comes to SEO that impacts, everyone.
Google's always judging. They're always watching. It's like, I gave in to my overlords about 10 years ago. I'm like, they're following me. They track me. They know everything. They know what I buy. They have all my credit cards stored. They could probably sign over title to my house and move in if they wanted to, but they don't because they're not evil, not yet at least. So you've been doing this a very long time. You're very good at what you do, and you got to own you got to own part of a company for being so good at what you do. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah, no. So it's kind of a funny story. So I have close connection with my sister-in-law's longtime boyfriend. Marvin was asking me for some input or advice on he had just kind of came into a partnership on a coffee company. It's called Normal Coffee Company or normalcoffeeco.com, and he one thing he knew right away when it was a company that had been around already for a couple years. One of his buddies was the other partner in it, and they had brought him in as they were actually now like starting to see the business grow and wanted to scale it. And they had known enough about digital marketing and SEO and essentially having a storefront to have this like Shopify site and to try and produce some content and try and generate some SEO and try and do some, Facebook ads, like just a little bit. But they weren't really seeing their business grow through the digital channels. They were growing a lot through events that they were doing and some B2B, marketing. So like this coffee is actually, if you've been to Freya or if you've been to Chartreuse, those are two places in Detroit that carry this coffee. And so, they wanted to invest more in their digital presence. And so he's reaching out to me and asking me for like my advice at first. And then as I was giving him some, he was asking if like I would kind of, hey, would you be willing to, for, some fee come in and help us, and there's only so many hours in a day, and so like I have a pretty busy job. I'm in grad school. I got 2 daughters and, a wife and just, no shortage of things to do. So there's not really, I'm not looking for some, extra side cash to be able to, give up X number of hours, but it did sound interesting enough to say like, hey, if you want to give me some stake in the company and make this something that I can be part of growing, and then part of, if we successfully grow it, benefit from it. Like that sounds worth it to me. That sounds like something that's worth giving up a couple hours, in the evening or on a weekend in order to be able to help invest in driving this strategy. And so, So they agreed, the partners, Ryan and Marvin, and, have brought me in, and now I'm starting to focus on what the digital presence is of this company, and trying to, grow their online value.
Just when I thought all the TLDs in the world were done, they have .coffee. So yeah, it's normal .coffee. I just found that out. So I'm like,
normal.com. Oh, wait, is there a normal.coffee? Because we're actually Normal Coffee.
Yeah. But if you go to normal.coffee, it forwards.
Oh, does it? Okay, cool. So there you go. That's like one of these things that as I'm getting up to speed in the business, I didn't even really realize that they did that. But it's a cool company. So if you're again in the Detroit area, headquartered in the Fisher Building, they roast coffee in Highland Park, and essentially what the market is for this coffee is, like, if you think of it as there's like low, mid, and high grade coffee, this coffee really is priced as normal coffee. It's priced in the mid range for normal people, but because it's direct to consumer. And what we've found is, if you can just roast really fresh coffee and get it into the hands of people, like if it's good coffee and you roast it and you get it in their hands really fast, it tastes as good as high grade coffee. Like I'm not gonna lie, like I'm a real big coffee guy, and when I look at the $20 to $25, $30 a bag like stuff, and I compare it to really good mid grade stuff that was roasted yesterday, it's hard to actually tell a difference in that coffee, at least in my opinion. And a lot of the people we talk to, they have a hard time telling the difference as well. So we do direct to consumer. We get very fresh coffee that's roasted and shipped right away to people, and we do it at a more affordable price point than what you're going to be finding at the high end. And if it's good enough, we find people will subscribe to it, and if they subscribe to it, then we get them new coffee almost as soon as they're done with the last order. And that's the business.
Nice. Love it. Yeah. Normal.coffee. Yeah, check it out. Looks great. I just went to the website. So lastly, we see meetups all the time, and like, we're pretty much a generic meetup, right? There's no one in mind. But you guys have a meetup right now that's a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche, where it's where you're scrumdetroit.com. Talk to me how that got started, and I want to know what the hell you guys talk about when you have your event.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so scrumdetroit.com, that's something I run, with 4 other folks, that we founded coming out of the global Scrum gathering in Austin, Texas, which was this big global gathering of people coming together, that have figured out to use this development methodology called Scrum, which is really just a very simple framework that is so easy. You don't have to take any trainings or any classes, even though they're offered, to understand it. You can like literally just read a page and understand, oh, there's these 5 roles and these like 4 things you do, and here's how you run a team. And you can use it to, like, it's not just a tech thing. Like, I actually know a guy named Riccardo Meriti, who lives in London and owns an Italian restaurant there called Riccardo's of London. And he runs his restaurant using Scrum. And he took it from being like a failing restaurant to being in the green and a successful one. He wrote a whole paper on it. If you're interested to know more about it, I'm sure you could Google like Riccardo of London's Scrum.
Do you know it at a high level?
You can find this whole research paper he wrote on it.
Do you know it at a high level?
I do. Yeah. I know the story. I know the story at a high level. So he basically came in after taking this training on Scrum, and he was like, what do I have to lose? My restaurant's failing. And so I'm going to try this. And so he came into his team and he said, like, look, everyone has job security, but no one has role security. All roles are just flat at this point. We don't have managers. Like, we're just going to self-organize teams from now on. And we're going to do sprints. And the sprint is basically going to be a service. So whether that's the lunch service or the dinner service, and he would huddle up the team as a, just one team basically. And, they would kind of divvy up like what everyone was going to be running and doing. They would retrospect at the end of each shift and talked about what went well and what didn't go well. And then they would go into their planning for the next shift. And for the next shift, they would take the lessons learned from the last one and they would plan out how they were going to run the next dinner service. And they would just kind of continue to iteratively improve ultimately on the guest experience. Like that was their goal, was to like try and have a good experience for the customers.
Yeah, I'm looking at this going by scrumming. We were able to complete a process in an hour that had previously taken a manager 24 hours. And like,
oh, he's talking about the scheduling there. I remember them. Yeah, he talked about that, of like, it used to take, like, managers would sit there and have to try and figure out the every single week what the schedule was going to be for the next week. And it was a very tedious process. And instead they just started to do it as a group and start to figure out like, hey, what shifts do you want to work? And they would just kind of trust that people would fill in shifts and it would end up working out. Like they would end up getting all the shifts filled in. And it turned out all the tedious, overhead of a manager doing the schedule just was wasted work that didn't have to happen. The people could figure it out.
Yeah, and it looks like a dev board if you ever walked through a software dev floor.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bunch of sticky notes, different colors.
Yeah. And so the reason why I ended up, I'll tell you, having like passion around Scrum is if you've been in tech for a long time, you've definitely been part of teams that have been like overworked, undervalued, always late, have customers that are never happy. And no one wants to work that way. It's like demoralizing to be in that situation. And what I found with Scrum was it gave me as a leader of an engineering team a way to kind of take some control back of that and make a very transparent process where I was able to just point to numbers and metrics about the team's performance to be able to say, look, we're actually improving. We're actually delivering more each sprint than we were the previous sprint. And here's actually the reason why, and having some control in the process, here's why we are not being successful. Like, did you realize that after we agreed on the, features we were going to deliver this week, we changed it 5 times. And those 5 changes had this cost. If we can stop changing, then we could probably deliver early instead of late. And so, so that's kind of what, Scrum gives you some control on that. There's a million other ways to do it. I'm not going to say that's the best way, but there's enough people involved in that community that we recognize, like, Detroit doesn't really have a Scrum community. And if it's this thing that could be used for not only engineering, but for automotive or for running a restaurant, let's start a meetup group. Let's get some people together and let's give them the free information on how you can take some of what we've learned in the community and bring it back to your place of work and implement it and try and see if it helps you and if it makes your life a little bit better.
Well, we'll try to do a couple co-op events. We'd love to host you guys and vice versa. Check them out on, you're on Meetup, right? Or just scrumdetroit.com. I think it pointed over.
Yeah. If you go to scrumdetroit.com, it'll forward you over to the Meetup group. And you can get signed up.
Well, awesome. We'll look forward to seeing you in the future, and we're going to cut you loose for the night. But thanks for the great content. Thanks for the conversation. This whole MarTech, like I said, I don't, as much as I will ever pretend to understand what MarTech is, I think, but you helped us a little bit, so appreciate it. So hey, on behalf of Bob and Randy, do us all a favor: drink up your drinks, get your phone numbers. You don't got to go home. You just got to get the hell out of here. See you next week. Drive careful. Beat it.